And when that rich man actually told this preacher that the reason he has decided to give him that money is because when he was listening to him, his ideas were very practical. Yet you will be deceiving yourself if you believe you can succeed without the cooperation of other people. How many times have you seen people try to go through life alone? That stop looking for opportunities so far away that we may find it right where we stand. That wherever it is that you're standing, if you just look by your side, in front and backwards, you're probably standing on the opportunity that you are desperately looking for. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Duncan and this is Channel Ask Dra. And today, there is a lot of things that are hidden in books. And there is a reason why people who read, they almost seem like they have an advantage over those who don't. As a matter of fact, without books, we will not know so much that we know today. We understand our world better because we read books. We understand a philosophy, we understand science, we understand religion and faith better because someone took their time to put down information that they probably realized through the experience of their lives, or they also learned through generally life experiences. And through those people, we can learn so much about this life that we are trying to figure out on a day-to-day basis. And that is why I'm taking off on a journey where I am going to read as many books as I can, which I have always done. I love books and I always try as much as possible to read. But I asked myself, what is the value of me reading and containing that information within myself? So I'm starting a journey where I am going to review a chapter by chapter basis on great books that have been written by great men. And I hope that you shall watch and you shall learn a lot from those kind of content and it shall change your life. You see, I understand that the life and times that we live in today, people don't have time to do so many things, including reading. So many people would love to read, but there's a lot of work, there's a lot of things you're doing during the day that by the time you're getting home, you just want to sit or to sleep. Now, I'm going to make it very easy for you, that I will read for you, I will summarize it for you, which is basically the idea behind this whole channel. I will read it for you, I'll summarize it for you, and then I'll bring it to you in a simpler way which you can understand. And to start us off, guys, I don't think there's anyone who doesn't want to learn more about success. Everyone is trying to be successful. Part of the reason why you don't find time for any other thing is because you're trying to be successful. You're working so hard so that you can make money and you can improve your life and you can get to exactly where you want to go to. But what is the secret? What is the problem? Why is it that not so many people are successful? Now, on this first chapter of this great book, we are starting a journey on a certain very interesting book. It's a famous book. So many people have read about it, and it is one book that has been considered the greatest book in terms of summarizing the principles of success. Which book am I talking about, guys? I am talking about The Law of Success. There's a great book by the name The Law of Success, which tries to tell us the idea and the goal behind the writer of this book is that success has a pattern. Success has principles behind them. And part of the reason why you are failing, part of the reason why I am failing, is that we are not applying the right principles when it comes to success. Now, are you interested in knowing those 15 principles? Are you interested in knowing exactly what the writer is trying to tell us, that we need to do these 15 things? And if we are able to execute these 15 things in our lives, there is no way success will not come to our side. Now, guys, do you know who this person is? Do you know, even before you continue with this video, try and think through whether you know this person, the person who wrote the book, The Law of Success. He's a famous guy, he's a famous man, well known around the globe. And if you don't know, then you probably need to stick around this channel because you're going to learn many more of these kind of things. You are the kind of people that I'm looking for because you probably don't have time to read and I am here for you. The author of this book is a gentleman who was born in 1883 and in Wise County, Virginia, clearly the United States of America. And like every other successful people, he was a secretary, he did a lot of, for a local newspaper, he was a manager of a coal mine and a lumberyard. I don't know what that is, but let's keep going. He attended law school before working as a journalist for Bob Taylor's magazine. Have you ever realized that successful people seem to have gone through a very interesting journey of their lives? I'm yet to find one successful person who just got one thing and ran with it and that was it. Most of them almost have a history of trying to do so many things. Yeah. Now, it is at the point where he was doing journalism that he met one of the most famous individuals great men of our, not even of our time, great men ever. And I think this one, you guys know much about him. So while the writer of this book was working as a journalist in Bob Taylor's magazine, he met one of the greatest industrialists by the name Andrew Carnegie. And guys, if you don't know much about Andrew Carnegie, please go and read about him. He is one of the wealthiest and most famous industrialists. His fortune through the Carnegie Corporation of New York has supported discoveries. Some of the monies he was able to generate through industrialization, he was able to finance, can you imagine, the discovery of insulin that was made possible by the monies that were gotten from his foundation. His foundation also contributed towards dismantling of nuclear weapons, that it is now possible to dismantle nuclear weapons as a result of monies that were generated from the foundations of Andrew Carnegie. He is known for a very famous company by the name JP Morgan, which was a steel company back then. Just for you to understand how rich this guy was, even Bill Gates' current net worth has not yet reached half of what Andrew Carnegie was worth. Can you imagine? This guy was worth almost 5 times what Warren Buffett is worth right now. That is how successful this guy was. And now the writer of this book that I'm about to review for you met this gentleman when he was carrying out his journalistic career, when he was a journalist at Bob Taylor's magazine. And can you imagine how lucky this guy was? But don't worry. In the process of meeting this guy, that is when he came up with an idea of writing a book and interviewing as many industrialists as possible, as many successful people as possible, and coming up with principles which he believes are the things that these people have applied in their lives, and that is why they're successful. So met Andrew Carnegie, one of the most famous and the most wealthy industrialists. And that person is the one who changed his life for what it became eventually. And he was able to write some of the books that he has written. Now, one of the beliefs of Andrew Carnegie, he believed in success, that success could be distilled into principles that any person could follow, and urged this writer to interview the greatest industrialists of the era in order to discover these principles. So can you imagine, one of the most wealthy and successful people ever just said that success, he believed and he said that success is an idea, or it's a reality that can be followed through specific principles. That there are principles for which you can apply in your life for you to become successful. So it is actually true, guys, that we are probably not successful because we have not mastered the principles of success. And that is why we are here trying to figure that out. And that is when the writer of this book took on a journey to try and come up with these principles. And can you imagine that he wrote these principles over a period of 20 years? How many of us have patience to write books through that period of time? How many of us are running businesses that even within a year of trying to get something out of it, we just close it? How many of us, we try to build a career that within a period of a few months, 6 months, you're like, no, this thing is not working. We are moving on to the next thing. The writer of this book took almost 20 years to interview more successful people, industrialists, and to come up with these principles. And that is why these principles are golden. And I hope you shall stick around for you to be able to learn that. Now, unfortunately, the writer of this book eventually, of course, died in the year 1970. But he has left us with one of the most resourceful books ever in the law of success. In the introductory part of this book, the writer tries to tell us that he introduces us to a very interesting story. And he says that there was once a man by the name Gonzalez. And this Gonzalez guy was a clergyman and he was a preacher. So one of these days is preaching and he's inviting people for a sermon where he's going to talk about a topic that he said, what I will do if I had $1 million. So there's a preacher who is inviting people for a sermon, and the title of that sermon is what I will do if I had $1 million. And in the midst of that announcement, there was a rich man who was listening. And that rich man by the name Philip de Ama found it to be very interesting that a preacher will be inviting people so that people can listen into a sermon titled, what I will do if I had $1 million. So this rich man went also to just listen. And it is after he listened to this guy that Mr. Ama, the rich guy, actually realized that why should you just preach about if I had $1 million, yet I can actually give you $1 million? Because what I've heard you preach is very practical and it makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to give you this $1 million so that instead of preaching, actually go and actually do that. And can you imagine that this rich man gave that preacher $1 million, and the preacher started an institute called the AMA Institute of Technology. So in the present day, the AMA Institute of Technology actually exists, but it was started through the imagination of someone who had the imagination. He had the idea, but he didn't have the money. But the person with the money had that idea, and the person with that money actually supported that process. And that is how the AMA Institute of Technology is there up to this day. And when that rich man actually told this preacher that the reason he has decided to give him that money is because when he was listening to him, his ideas were very practical. And that is why even the AMA Institute of Technology was started to teach young men and women on how to come up with practical imaginations and practical ideas that can actually be implemented and executed. Yeah. So out of that, I learned lesson 1. And this, we are still in the introductory part of this book, guys. It's a long book and we shall go through it all together. So lesson 1 I've learned is that there is always plenty of capital for those who can create practical plans for using it. Are you getting that point? That capital is never the problem. And I'm learning this one step at a time as I also live my life. Capital is never the problem. The problem is that we have impractical ideas. Our ideas are not making practical sense. So they are great ideas, but when you try to think about how practically you can carry it out, it doesn't make sense. And that is why the person who gives you the money will decide not to give you that money. So AMA Institute of Technology was built behind the practicality of the sermon that person, Ganasaras, was preaching. Lesson number 2, in that introductory part of this book, we are learning that every great railroad, every outstanding financial institution, and every mammoth business enterprise, and every great invention began in the imagination of someone. Guys, anything that you look around yourself, our environment, trust me, as much as you're wowed by these big companies, as much as you're wowed by these big buildings and these inventions, can you imagine that someone sat somewhere and just thought about it? Any great thing to happen in the world, someone must have thought about it. Someone must have imagined. So if you are not imagining how, if you have never imagined of how you can change the world from the small place that you are the one who is limiting yourself, because everything actually starts from imagination. And if these people were able to imagine these great things, what is stopping you and what is stopping me? Because are they not human beings? So it means there is something between the process of you, imagination, and practicality that is limiting your ability to go to the next level. And so the lesson number 2 is that everything you see around us, everything that wows you was once someone's imagination. But that someone's imagination was practical enough for people with money to trust that process, for them to finance that. And the writer is giving us examples of great men like, for example, Thomas Edison. And for people who don't know who Thomas Edison is, I will not shy away from introducing you to this gentleman by the name Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison is the person who invented the first instrument to record and play sound. We are able to record and to play sound these days so that you can listen to it later because of a gentleman by the name Thomas Edison. And that instrument was called a talking machine, in another name, a phonograph. So we are now able to record something and listen to it later because of this gentleman. And how did he come up with that idea, guys? How did he sit down and think about it? Imagination. He did not limit his imaginations. Thomas Edison also came up with the electrical light bulb. This light bulb that has filament. So it was a high resistance incandescent electric light, which Thomas Edison also is the person who came up with that. How could this guy have done it? How could he have done it without imagining first? It is after he imagined and he sold that idea to someone that the reality came to pass. Lesson number 3, we're still in the introductory part, guys, so don't go away. The lesson number 3 that the writer is telling us is that fortunate is the young man or young woman who learns early in life to use imagination, and doubly so in this age of greater opportunity. That in the ages that you are living in today, if you are not tapping into your imagination, you are limiting a lot of your potential, and the greatness and the success that you can actually eventually experience. Success comes to people who imagine things, who try to think bigger through their imaginations. Yeah. And he goes on and tells us that imagination can be cultivated, developed, and extended and transcended by use. You can actually cultivate imagination. You cannot say that, me, I don't know how to imagine great things. No, that process can be cultivated. It can be developed. So today, we are going to venture. So in this book, he has given us even ways in which you can cultivate your imagination. So if you think that imagination is your weakness, then the writer of this book has actually given us an opportunity to even learn how to expand and how to cultivate our imaginations. So if you were almost thinking that you don't know how to imagine, ahead of us is the secrets behind that. And he's saying that wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever you may be doing as an occupation, there is room for you to make yourself more useful and in that manner more productive. Yeah. So he tells us that success is a matter of individual effort. How many times have we heard that, guys? Or how many times haven't we heard that? We have just started. Success is a matter of individual effort. But he doesn't stop there. He says, yet you will be deceiving yourself if you believe you can succeed without the cooperation of other people. How many times have you seen people try to go through life alone? You come up with something and you think that you can actually just run with it by yourself and eventually succeed. And here we have one of the most famous and successful wealthy people who is telling us that success is a matter of individual effort, but only to the level of each person's must decide. At the point of deciding, that is the only point where success is an individual effort. That you only decide to succeed only at the point where you make the decision. That is the only point where it is an individual effort. But after you have decided to succeed, then you must bring in people. You must learn how to cooperate with other people. Are you guys getting the point? So probably already we are learning that we are not succeeding because you have made success a personal journey. And success is not a personal journey. You cannot succeed alone. And he's also saying that it is a personal journey only to the level that you make the decision to start that journey of success. And he says that from this point on, after you have made the decision to try and be successful, success is a matter of skillful and tactful inducement of others to cooperate. So after you've imagined the great things you want to do, after you've imagined the great places you want to go or the great changes you want to make into the world, you have to be very skillful in your ways of now bringing in people so that they can start buying into this imagination and to make that imagination practical. Yeah. So we are still in the introductory part of this book, and I'm just giving you a bit or a taste of what is ahead of us. Yeah. So the writer also tells us that the purpose of the law of success, now the purpose of this book is to enable you to find out how you may become more capable in your chosen field. He's saying that the reason why he wrote this book, The Law of Success, is trying to make you realize how just within where you are as a person, you can actually still become successful. That there's a possibility you are just not looking, there's something you're not seeing within where you are. And he's trying to help you see exactly what you need to see for you to go to the next level, guys. Yeah? So he's saying that you might not like where you are right now. You might not like your job. You might not like your hustle. You might not like what you're doing. But within where you are, within what you're doing, there is probably something you're not seeing. And he's trying to find a way of helping you to see that thing. So he says that there are only two ways you can get yourself out of where you are right now. You can remove your interest from what you are doing and just give your bare minimum. And over time, the people who have employed you or whatever it is that you're trying to do, your demand will just slowly by slowly disappear and people will cease demanding and wanting your services. That is one way. And the second one is the one that he recommends. And he says that you can make yourself useful and efficient, that you will attract the favorable attention of those who have the power to promote you. That number one, you can decide to just not give your best and lose interest. And over time, people will not need your services and they'll get rid of you. But he recommends the second option, where you are, is that you can make yourself useful and efficient. And people who have the resources will promote you and they'll push you to a place where you can make the best out of your time and your resources. Yeah. So he ends up by giving us a story in this introductory phase. He ends up by giving us a story of a certain bridge. So he's saying thousands of people walked over the great Calumet copper mine. Those people who know the story of the great Calumet copper mine, please, on the comment section, you can tell us. He says that so many people were passing by that Calumet copper mine without even discovering, and they didn't realize until just one lone man used his imagination. He imagined that down below this mine there could be something, and he went in and dug out the largest copper deposit on earth. Can you imagine? And yet so many people were passing through that place. Had it not been an imagination through this one lone man, would he ever have imagined that? So is it that the people who were passing through that bridge, they never imagined or thought that that copper mine could have what it had? It only took one man to imagine. And he therefore tells us that we frequently walk over our Calumet mines. So each of us has a Calumet mine. We have things that we normally on a day-to-day basis, we are passing by, and we are passing across, or we are passing over our Calumet mine without realizing that below that mine there is our discovery that can take us to the next level. And you just need to do a little of investigation and imagination. Isn't this book great, guys? I think I love it already. I can't wait to see where this book is going to take us. So in finalizing, he has said that he has come up with the 15 laws of success that may lead you to your Calumet mine. That mine that lone man discovered, he is giving you 15 principles and laws that can take you there. Now, to close this up, he gives us a final example of that there was a gentleman by the name Russell Canwell. Russell Canwell is someone who is well known. He was another preacher again, a well-known preacher who came up with a speech that he titled The Acres of Diamonds. And in The Acres of Diamonds, this gentleman was able to speak over 6,000 speeches that were done over 60 or over 6 decades. That is over 60 years. That a gentleman came up with The Acres of Diamonds, which is a speech, a motivational speech, that he was able to do it over 6,000 times across 6 decades. And in that motivational speech, Russell Canwell says, we need not to seek opportunity in the distance, that stop looking for opportunities so far away, that we may find it right where we stand. That wherever it is that you're standing, if you just look by your side, in front and backwards, you are probably standing on the opportunity that you are desperately looking for. And that is the same thing that the writer of this interesting book says, that you are probably just not imagining. You're probably limiting your imagination, and that is why you are not able to mine this opportunity that you are desperately looking for you to become successful. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the introductory phase of this journey that we are embarking on. I don't know how many episodes it will take for us to finalize on this book, but my goal is to that I do a single chapter, and I hope that you shall come back to watch the following chapter one by one. Now guys, I hope that once you read this book, like many other people who have read this book, so many of them have said that they were successful. I am telling you this because I have read people online, the reviews that I've had on this book is that it works. Sawa sawa. My name is Duncan, and I am also applying the principles of this book in my personal life, and I hope that it will change my life as well, the same way I'm hoping it is going to change yours. It will make a lot of sense for you to subscribe to this channel, because if you don't, how will you know that I've uploaded the next episode of this journey that you have just embarked on? Guys, subscribe to this channel, follow this channel, invite your friends who you think will find value in this channel, and I'm hoping that we shall grow. This is the channel that educates people, and it is about an army of smart people. We are an army of smart people, and we are seeking knowledge, and above all, we are trying to build our imagination. See you again on the next episode, which is the first chapter of this amazing book by a gentleman who I had not mentioned, but his name is Napoleon Hill. How many of you knew that? Now you know. See you again, guys, and bye.